Every day's not like that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it's just like rehashing all the stuff.
Yeah. Well, what would be good use of this time?
As long as I sat out there. It's always happened. I was like in the bathroom thinking, I was like, okay, what am I going to talk about today? The weeks that I go on with nothing to talk about, I always end up crying. Wait, I think that's every week. Yeah, okay. Well, yesterday I had a visitation with, the first, like, visitation with people from my church that I'd never met before.
Mm-hmm.
The husband was in the hospital and the wife has fibromyalgia, and so for 2 weeks we had been coordinating rides for them, but I had never met them before. And I don't think they really came to church before all this happened. So I went and the husband's home now and they're doing at-home dialysis, and so I went to check and to see how they were doing. It was a good visit. It was interesting to have the dynamic of both like the husband and the wife there. I've done that here, but a lot of times this one spouse is like the interpreter for the other. So it's been interesting to work with a couple where they both can speak for themselves and stuff. Yeah, it was just neat but I also found myself I wanted to ask, I don't know, it was just, I walked away from the visit pleased that I did it on my own. I didn't have the senior pastor come with me or any other church person. I just kind of took it upon myself to do that since it's my job. And, but at the same time I was like, I think I was back at the place that I kind of was when I was here. When I first started here, like, was that minister, like, was I of any benefit to them? Like, all we did was talk about, like, records and golfing and their kids and stuff like that. I asked questions I did ask curious questions. I felt like I was kind of bold with my questions. The husband, he's had 6 heart attacks. And he has type 1 diabetes, so it's because of the diabetes that he was, born with. And, I mean, you look at him and you're like, no way has that guy had so many. But, I asked some questions about that. I was like, do you ever get scared? What's that like to live with that? And how do you cope with that? And, he had a super good head on his shoulders. And, yeah, the wife, on the other hand, it was just interesting. So, I guess I'm still trying to kind of find peace with myself with like that was ministry, that even though I spent an hour talking with them and probably 45 minutes of that was just about family, like how they met, that kind of stuff, that it was still ministry. It's hard to, it's just sometimes hard to like say like, oh, that, that's being Christ to someone, because I think so often in the Bible we just get snippets of where Jesus taught. We don't really get too many snippets of him just having conversations or like getting to know the disciples or just being present to the people, that I think as ministers we can feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be, we're told to be like Jesus, so like you have to be.
So I'm curious what you're thinking about its value.
Well, I thought, since I've always kind of struggled with curious questions, it seemed normal that I was proud of myself for asking them, even though I just had met them. But then I also tried to remind myself, like, I just met these people. It's not, I've been talking to the wife for a while, but yeah, they don't know me. They've never seen me in worship or anything like that, so I guess it makes sense. You have to have those get-to-know questions with people before you can build a trust to ask those hard questions. So I was trying just to dwell on that, but I still recognize that it's hard for me. I think I was surprised by that I was, because here, if I had had, like, a visit with, like, Maddie or something that was like that, and I walked out and we didn't even talk about anything that had to do with God, I would have been like, oh, that was a great visit. It totally was Christ to her. I I mean, maybe not like that, but you know,
I know what you mean.
So it was just, recognizing like, okay, well, this is an area where I'm still like working on that. So how do I get to where I am here at home? And so what does that look like? And I think for me that just looks like doing this more often. I wonder if tomorrow Jim and I are going around to the nursing homes finally to visit our members that are in nursing homes or in I think we're just doing nursing homes. We're not doing homebound, but I wonder if I will feel more satisfied walking out of those with whatever I do than when people are just like at home recovering. So
yeah, I think that's an interesting question to ponder, and if you do wind up saying, yeah, I'm really, felt like I did something, whatever that something is.
Yeah.
You wonder what it was about that.
Yeah, made me feel like, that was ministry, and this one maybe not so much. Even when I saw the couple, and this is probably why I thought about it so much, just because at the very end I was like, it was 4:30, and I had been there since 3:30, so I was like, okay. I mean, the conversation was going, but I was like, this is like an hour, that's probably good. Like, these people, he was saying, like, oh, I get tired pretty easily and stuff, so I was like, okay, I need to cut it off. And so I said something like, yeah, I have to go and pick my daughter up and get dinner started, but I'm a minister, so I guess I should, like, pray. Do you guys want me to pray for you? And I was just like, why did I say it like that? But it just spoke to me that I felt so kind of not in my element yet that I would say something like, I'm a minister, so I guess I should pray.
So, yeah, well, keep that in mind. I want to go back to, something you mentioned a minute ago, and that is how you, if you'd had that visit, same visit over in assisted living or something, or long-term care, and it was the same content that you said, I represented Christ to that individual. What does that mean? And I think that's one of your guiding principles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And to me, what that means is just that you're present to them, that you're listening, and you're intentional in your time there. That, to me, I imagine Christ did a great deal of listening, despite the fact that, I just said we don't really see that in the Bible, but I imagine he had to do that for his ministry, and get to know people. And so being Christ to people, to me, means being present to them, being attentive, being fully there in the moment, and just, letting that conversation go wherever they may lead, and trying not to come in with my own agenda for where the conversation should go. And I think probably here, more than other places, I feel like people aren't heard. Support systems maybe aren't as robust as they used to be. Family has died, or family's not close by, they can't come visit. And so in this setting, I find being Christ really does mean just like listening and trying to make myself available and trying to reiterate the fact that I'm here, I care about what you have to say, you matter. And so, yeah, and I still, when I boil it down, I want to reflect that everywhere, but I recognize that that it's more difficult for me to live into that, at least in this, this is my first visit, so like,
yeah.
It's okay.
Right.
But live into that in this visit. And just to jump back to the praying thing, if I had been with Maddie, I never offer to pray with her unless she's said something that like has really she's talked about God or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't really offer to pray just because I feel like I'm listening to what she's telling me, and there's nothing that she, or sometimes I'll ask, like, I've had a pretty emotional conversation with someone, or they've shared things like they're scared, or have anxiety, and I'll say like, well, would you like me to pray for you? You know, you shared these things. Would you like me to lift those up? But sometimes it's just like a conversation, and so I'm not gonna like if we're talking about tuna sandwiches at the end of the conversation, I don't want to be like, so do you want to pray? Like, this doesn't seem. I don't know. It seems not authentic to what has been happening. And so I think in that situation yesterday, the reason I asked, like, do you want to pray, was because, like, I knew that they knew I was a minister. And sometimes that doesn't happen over in the woods. Sometimes they have no clue who I am. Like, I'll say, like, oh, hi, I'm Heather, I'm the chaplain. But sometimes they're just like, oh, okay, some girls coming, especially in skilled rehab, where it's like, people are kind of like loopy because they're tired, or they're on, they're like, who are you here with? You're social worker? Are you like, are you a psychologist? I'm like, no, I'm here for this. So, I just don't feel as much pressure to have to live up to the idea of what a minister does in a visit, in the way that I kind of felt the pressure at that moment. I was like, oh yeah, crap, I'm their minister. Like, I should pray for them, which is so interesting to me.
Yeah. It is interesting to think back early in my ministry. I believe I can identify the notion of did I do something? Did I do enough, or anything like that? And I guess if I've learned anything in 30 years, whether I do something or don't do something is almost irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But what is the quality of the relationship I have with that person? Mm-hmm. So I'm a believer that sometimes, just being in conversation with somebody, even if it's about a tuna fish sandwich, mm-hmm. or it's about a college basketball game, or it's about the weather, anything like that, we're sharing, and we're sharing. It may seem trite, but sometimes, if we provide, and I don't think it's intentional provision, but if we're providing, maybe it's a holy distraction, mm-hmm. from a guy who's getting, another treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the time there, I learned, like, all the family, nobody lives close by, none of their kids do. So they're kind of out here by themselves, and they've lived in the area for so long, but we talked about how much it's changed and how they used to know everyone, and now they feel like they don't know people. So, and they can't be more, I think he said he was like 57, so they're pretty young to be feeling what feeling that way. Like, my parents are that age. Yeah, like, I don't actually know, I never know those things, but they're in their 50s, so I know that they're like my parents' age. I'm like, my parents don't say those things. So it definitely, it was a really interesting visit. But I'll probably go back again, and I know other church members are visiting with them, so.
So you used curious questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, trying to pull up your learning goals, but I'm just wondering if in this visit you found yourself maybe working on any of your goals.
The learning goals are different than the ones that are in the verbatims.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think so. We should, like, do a thing in class where it's like, okay, everybody open your book, look at your learning goals. Are you doing this? Hand holding. But anyways.
Yeah, I don't do too much.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a good thing. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But it was a good visit, and it was nice to do it by myself. I was pleased with that. And
well, how do you feel that fit into we talked about the strategies last time
Mhm.
about your position and the different areas of your position, and I guess this is the congregational care part of your.
Mhm.
So how do you feel that fit into that strategy?
I think, I mean, it felt good because it was just, this was in front of me, and I knew Wayne, who is my lay person that works with me on congregational care, mentioned that he was like, oh, I'd like to take Carol and I'd like to take you over there to meet them. It sounded like they really wanted Jim to come and visit, but he's out of town right now. And I was like, oh, well, I don't, Wayne and his wife were headed out of town too. I said, I'll just go today. Like, I'll just call and go today. I don't, thanks for offering to take me, but I'll just go. And he was like, oh, good. I'm glad that you'll just go by yourself. I think they'll really enjoy that. So yeah, just kind of taking it like one step at a time. And I don't feel as overwhelmed by the job, and I really have been just trying to do, just like plug away a little bit. There are definitely emails that I get that make me like panic, and then I'm like, okay, it's fine. Just, you're doing your job, you're fine. So kind of still just trying not to buy into other people's anxiety about what I should be doing or what they think I should be doing, and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, well, good. Because it seemed like in the last supervision session that you really kind of had a breakthrough. Maybe that word is overused, but it seemed as if you had some significant insight and was able to think about and make some very intentional, concrete plans.
Yeah, it's helpful. I put dates to things, which always helps, and especially like in congregational care with Wayne, I just have been, he's, for me, such a good person to work with because I can be honest about, like I'm doing CPE right now and it does take up a lot of my time, and, but here are the things I want to do, and I'm like, okay, well, let's not worry about them until CPE is over. Like, there's no rush on this, and he's pretty good about reminding me, like, it's our timeline. It's okay. Like, we can take our time. And so that's been really good. I like.
So somebody on staff gives you grace.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's great at that. He's good. Yeah. I know. I definitely am thankful for him, and he. Like, I should write him a thank you note because he really has helped so much, and he sent me an email, and even his wife came in, and he sent me an email about how people have just been saying, like, how much they appreciate having me there, and how much, he's like, you've been here for a year and a half, but now everybody's talking about you, and they just love you, and which that feels really good. I mean, I don't know how many people he's been talking to. Probably like one person said it to him, but whatever. I'll take that one person and the affirmation that, I'm called to this. I'm good at this. Like, and it's not just me that knows it, but the congregation feels that too. And so I'm really thankful for that. I'm so thankful I'm in worship now. I can't. It's transformed just the way that I think the church definitely has transformed the way the church sees me, but it's also transformed kind of the way I see the church, because actually it is really hard to love a congregation you're not worshiping with regularly, so or love them well. I mean, I love my families, and not that I didn't like the rest of the church, I just didn't know them, so it's nice to get to worship with them.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The best place to get to know folks, I think, is in the worship event.
Mm-hmm.
You get at least I do, I get a sense of how people make sense of things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is worship.
Yeah.
That's significant insight. You know, it's interesting, and I guess I find myself do this sometimes too. But you know, what you just did now, I just want to observe that it happened. Reflecting that Wayne or Wayne's wife are bringing affirmation to you and bringing affirmation beyond themselves from others, and you know, you kind of said, well, maybe it's just one person. You know, so I guess part of part of the process in developing self, okay, is when you can receive some affirmation and feedback on the surface level without it creeping into either, you know, our insecurities on one side or our narcissism on the other side. So, you know, yeah, I mean, you're not the only person I've ever experienced to do this, but to minimize the effort that somebody brings you feedback or affirmation.
Yeah, I think, one, as a woman, I'm taught to do that from a pretty, like, young age. I just think women do that more than men. Like, we're not supposed to let it go to our heads or, you know, stuff like that. Like, I don't think that our society values women, confidence in women as much, and so I can't, it is very rare that you even give a woman a compliment that she can be like, oh, thank you, and just, you know, move forward and doesn't have to say, well, oh, thank you, but that was just a good hair day, or, oh, thank you, but, so I think that there's definitely that in there. But then, yeah, I think that I get afraid that if I think like, oh, more than one person might like me, that I don't want to become reliant on people's praise in order to feel confident about myself. So I think there's that too. So trying to temper it with like, well, maybe it's only one person, like, you know, because it feels good. I mean, everybody, I mean, not everybody, but I would say a vast majority of people like to be affirmed, and I certainly was in a place, or am in a place right now where I'm needing it a little more, and so that feels, you're like, oh, who wants to be that, like, needy person that needs that, but I think as long as I think you can accept it, and this is basically what you were saying, but I can accept people's affirmations without placing my worth in them. So.
And yeah, again, making it the face value of it. Don't make more of it than it needs to be, but certainly don't make less of it than it is. It's presented.
Yeah. I have my encouragement folder, so I moved my email from him into my encouragement folder. Because sometimes you need the reminder, because you can go seasons without hearing anything positive. So it's good for me, I've found that it's good to, I guess that kind of makes it sound like I rely on it, but and maybe I do, but.
Well, no, I mean, I think you bring up an excellent point of what we teach females in our society, and that confidence in a woman is perceived differently than confidence in a man.
Yeah.
And I personally think that's a whole lot of hogwash.
I do too. I'd love for that to change.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I think, and part of the issue is that maybe we do teach females at some level to be needy, or to be perceived as needy.
Oh, that's
because maybe that strokes the man's ego.
Yeah.
And that's hugely unfortunate.
Yeah. And it's often unfair. I mean, definitely needy is like one of those words for me where I'm like, you call me needy? Like that, it's like a trigger word, you know?
Okay, so you have a reaction
Yeah,
to
I
it.
definitely have a reaction to it. Because I think a lot of times when I have encountered, this is like literally nothing to do with what we're talking about, but like in relationships with men, when I reflect back now and I have, you know, heard them say, well, you're being too needy, and then you like internalize that and you're like, oh my God, am I asking for too much, you know? When in reality, if I reflect back, like, yeah, maybe I was asking for a little much, but like at the same time, what I'm hearing you say is you're asking too much of me and I can't deliver. So the best way I can shut this down and make it stop happening is to make you feel bad about it. And so Daniel and I, you know, he doesn't use the word needy, but sometimes he'll be like, you're asking for a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Like, why does it feel like a lot? Are you tired? Do you know, because I don't feel like I'm asking for too much or, so that's a constant in my life is like, just needing attention or connection and stuff like that. So, and that's the joy of an introvert and an extrovert relationship sometimes. They'll be like, why don't you go to Target and walk around? Here, I got a few things I need you to go get off the shopping list. You seem like you need people. Like, okay. I'll go do that. You know, I'll admit that, yeah, sometimes I just need to walk around Target and look at stuff and look at other people. And when I walk away, and I'm like, oh, that itch was scratched. Like,
Yeah. So it sounds like that, boy, it sounds like part of your personality is really a relationship oriented personality that you experience in other people and are fed by that interaction with other people. But it also, you describe, particularly at work, really feeling kind of you know, inside a bubble, maybe. Insulated and not wanting to be, well, you know, part of being in a relationship with people is in some sense, and you don't do this with every relationship, but in some sense it requires a bit of vulnerability and trust. And it sounds as if, particularly on staff, that you go against your nature and try to hold all that in.
Yeah.
That must, I don't know if it must, but it seems like that would just...
It sucks.
And drain a lot of energy.
It does. It's so draining to go to work because I can't fully be myself because I feel like I have put myself out there and then kind of been stepped on by, in particular, Angela and Linda. And so I just have like, you know, I am a relationship driven person, and so trying to make peace with the fact that it really is okay. Like, just remind myself, it's okay that she doesn't tell me what happened on her weekend, and I don't tell her, like, it's okay. Coworkers do that all across the world. Like, it really is okay. As long as we can get done what we need to get done, it's fine. But yeah, it really goes against my nature to do that, and so it is draining to be there, and yeah, it is. I like hate the days that I have to go into work, which is funny because it's not even like, I mean, Angela and I are supposed to share an office, but she works in the library a lot of times, so I share an office with her and with me and all her boxes. She has a lot of boxes right now. Children's ministry creates a lot of boxes, so I'm not hating. It's just really funny. So it's not even like I'm like interacting with them. On Tuesdays is the most interaction I have with the whole staff, and it's at our staff meetings. So, I mean, maybe that's part of the problem is I'm not interacting with them, and so it makes the feeling even more exacerbated. But yeah, I just haven't really found. It just feels really fake to me when I do interact. So I don't know.
Well, I'm a firm believer in faking it till you make it.
Yeah. I mean, I try to, it's not like I avoid it, so I'm not, like, if I'm just walking down the hall, I'm not going to be like, whoop, turn around and go the other way,
Sure.
but, and I try to make a point to ask about her kids, or that they have a puppy that they're training at home, or whatever is going on in her ministry. Because I had a colleague tell me, like, that there's some study somewhere that says if you spend 3 minutes asking about someone's personal life, like with a coworker that you don't have really good relationships with, that it really like opens them up more to just even being able to work better together. Not like it's gonna make this magical friendship, but just
It's using the Johari window.
yeah, it is. That's right. It is the Johari window. Yeah, so I try really hard to do that with her and with Linda, even though, and I find, at first I'm like, oh god, I don't want to do this, but I'll do it, and then by the end of the conversation I'm like, oh, that was good. I'm happy I did that. Yeah, it was not it was not pulling teeth, it was just fine, so.
So if you were to continue those efforts, and do you imagine that, I don't know, do you imagine that, I mean, there are all sorts of different kinds of relationships. There are those relationships, there are friend relationships, there are the acquaintance relationships, there are professional relationships. And I think all of them are different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not friends with everybody I meet, but I try to be friendly with everybody I meet. And I try to hear everybody that I meet when they tell me something. And I don't know that I use different skills in those relationships. It's just some relationships, like with friends or with family, it's a little bit easier. So, I'm just, if you recognize Linda, for example, and you know that that's a professional relationship, she wants to keep it professional, and you want to keep it professional. Okay, so now we know the boundaries. So how can we operate in that, and how can we be connected in that professional relationship?
I think the struggle really comes for me so there was the breaking of trust over time, but the struggle comes because, of course, when I first got there, I wanted to be friends with everyone, and Angela and I used to take like hour-long walks together in the middle of the day. We were always together. We said, we really were trying to create that friendship, and so it's hard to say, okay, this trust was broken. We were friends. Trust broke. Now we're just going to be professional. So it kind of feels like acknowledging that we're not acknowledging that something has occurred
Changed.
or died, or, and we're trying to figure out, like, I think she's okay. She's probably fine. And so it's just getting there myself. Because I don't want, and I don't say this in a nasty way, but I don't need more friends. I don't need her to be my friend.